Hello, I'm Royce Kruger. I'm here to present to you a portion of the 8 Keys DVD course. Thank you very much for joining. In this particular DVD, we're going to focus on number 5, the 5th key, on execute your plan. Many of us have built wonderful goals. We have great relationships. Now what we need to do is execute our plan. So what we're going to focus on in this section is what do we do in order to execute properly. I'm going to speak to you today as if you were setting up your own business and you're working with your own business. You can apply these same principles if you're an employee in a business, but I thought you might find it interesting to see it from the frame of reference of how to set up your own business and execute a plan for setting up your own business. So I'm going to use some of the ideas, some of the concepts that people use in setting up their own business. So we're going to talk about testing your product or service. We're going to talk about how to avoid distractions. We're going to talk about taming the email tiger, how to make that email controllable in your life. We're going to talk about how to build an implementation plan. We're going to go through how to avoid distractions. We're going to talk about think fail safe. Let's think of a plan that won't fail. We're going to talk about using quality and the importance of executing with quality. We're going to talk about team development. We're going to talk about how to keep your energy high for you and your team. And we're going to talk about how to correct negative behavior and get better results in what you're doing. And of course, we want to talk about empowering your team. This section is going to be all about wealth development. In the next section of execution, I'm going to talk about your character development execution plans. But in this particular one, we're going to talk about building wealth, and that's what our big focus is. So when you execute your plan, what you want to do is to be able to focus on getting the results that you set out in your goals. Your goal becomes the end result you're trying to achieve. Your execution plan walks you through a few steps in order to help you get to that end result that you really want to achieve. In the previous 2 lessons, we focused on building relationships. In this section, we know that we need to have relationships and we need to execute with those relationships. Now we're taking those relationships and putting them to work for us. We're taking the great friends and people and business associates that we've collected around us, and now we're going to go out and achieve what some people consider to be success in their life, the wealth success part of their life. And so in this next lesson, we're going to talk about character development, but in this one, it's all about wealth. Now, what is wealth anyway? Wealth can be defined in so many different ways. In the wealth I'm talking about in this section, I'm talking about your financial wealth. I'm talking about the possessions, the things that you own, those things that you can exchange for financial value. We're talking about that sometimes elusive goal that many people are in their life chase after, wanting to become rich, if you would. I'm not so interested in making you rich as I am getting you wealthy so that you have enough wealth to sustain your life, provide for your family, provide for your friends. So let's talk about this from the perspective, as I said, of building your own business, but it could also be applied from the same perspective as if you were employed by an employer. Building wealth with an employer is that you make a sufficient income that you can save, invest, grow your portfolio investments that you have, that you don't have to worry about the next paycheck. Also, when you provide wealth to your employer, you're constantly improving yourself, and the employer wants to keep you employed because you're valuable. So in this particular lesson, we're going to focus on the product or service that you will sell in your business, and we're going to, from time to time, I'm going to periodically stop and talk about you as an employee and how these principles apply to you as an employee in the organization that you'll be working in, possibly even today. So, principle number 1 is to make sure that whatever you have to offer to the public is valuable to them. So you need to be able to test your product or service to make sure that it's something that the people want. As you go out and test it, one of the things you're going to find is you're going to find that the general public will give you feedback on your product or service, and you'll need to be able to take the time to improve it, to make sure that it's a better product and service. Now, if you're an employee, you need to look at your skill sets and say, how can I improve my skill set so that my employer wants to continue to employ me? and continue to improve yourself in a way that is current for your employer. Don't do the same thing over and over again expecting greater wealth, because you have to improve to get greater wealth. It's important that you take those steps. So as you go out and test your product or service, use test groups, use friends and neighbors, use real products, and do the things that will test the quality of your product and get feedback, and listen to those users out there and those test groups that you're using, because they will give you some great ideas on how to improve the product and make it even better. Let me tell you about a training company that I know that created a terrific new product. They were very proud of it. They'd spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in producing the product, and they thought that they had it finished. And they decided they would go out and do their very first alpha test, and they would teach it to a group of people. As they taught it to that alpha test, they found out almost universally that the people in the room did not care for the training. There are many, many things that were wrong with it. So they went back to the drawing board again. They recreated it. They made all the types of improvements that was suggested to them. And they came out with another product, and this time they did a beta test on it. They beta tested it, and it seemed to work a little bit better. And they made improvement over the last time, but they needed to go out to the market again with a newer product, a better product. And so what they did is they went back, they redesigned many of the elements, and they tested that in many groups. And then they gave it a final test before they took it to market, and they had universal approval of it by those people who took the course. This process of getting feedback and so forth took them several months of very precious marketing time that they could have been out there selling the first product real hard. But actually, if they would have tried to sell the first product, it would have lost time, because the product would have been a failure. It would have been something that would have been a very bad mark. They would have lost a lot of customers over it. But as it was, they tested sufficiently, they made the revisions, they came out with a very high quality product, and their customers were very, very, very happy with it, and they got very little feedback on how to improve it, because they had done proper product testing and development. I suggest you do the same things for your product or service. And if you're an employee in the organization, get constant feedback from people on how you can improve yourself to be of greater value to your organization. So open up your workbook for just a moment. Why don't you look into your workbook, and you'll see there question number 1, and what it will do, it will guide you through this question. What is the product or service that you present? What are the skills that you present to your employer? And how will you test it? How will you test this product or service in the marketplace? Now, I'm going to go through several different elements in this particular section, and I'm going to talk about hints. I'm going to talk about ideas that will help you to better implement the plan that you made and the goals that you have set. And so one of the things that I could teach you that I've learned by long experience is this. You want to be able to avoid distractions as you go out and launch. One day I was reading the Harvard Business Review. I came upon a title in the Harvard Business Review that was very interesting, and it said, headline, "Beware the busy manager." I thought, that's strange. Don't you want your managers to be busy? They said, beware the busy manager. And I read the article, and something was revealed to me that I found very, very interesting. Number 1, many times your busy managers are not the effective managers. They seem busy, they're running around doing things, but they may not be providing the best results. Two European researchers went out and they followed about 13 very large multinational corporations, and they followed the managers in those organizations. They didn't follow the general populace, all of the employees, just the managers. Their conclusion of their study was, beware the busy manager. The bottom line of their study was this, is that so many of the managers, so many also of the employees are so busy running around doing things just for the activity and not following the goals and plans that the organization have, that they become distracted. that they do not focus on what is truly important in the organization. And this is the number they found. 10% of the managers were focused on what was truly important. 90% were either distracted, disengaged, or not really involved in doing that which was truly important in the organization. I say to you, one of the most important things you can do as you launch your new business, as you contribute to your employer, stay focused on that which is truly important. It's important for you to set the goal and make sure that's a vital goal that you'll be focused on that will help you achieve success in your organization. For example, it's important as a new organization to have cash flow. It's important for you as an employee to be paid. And I would say to you, stay focused on your cash flow to make sure that you have sufficient cash flow to pay for your bills and help you finance your growth and your development. Do not get so caught up on product development. Do not get so caught up in research that you don't pay attention to the cash that's coming in the door, because you must focus on selling those products that will create your cash flow. Thus, selling becomes a vital activity inside of your organization. Don't become distracted by other plans. Don't be distracted by even some complaints that you get and so forth to keep you from continuing to sell and to create that cash flow. Say no to anything that keeps you away from doing that thing that is really vital to make your organization succeed. And you need to know what those vital things are. It's so important for you to take a step-by-step methodology to implementing your goals. When you do this and you focus on that which is truly vital, you're focusing on the vital things rather than those things that will disengage you, that will distract you and keep you away. So what we want to do is change the formula from being 90% distracted and 10% on goal. You want to make sure that this doesn't happen. You want to change that number so maybe you have some minor distractions of 10% and 90% of the time you're focusing on your goal. The focus is to make sure that you do those things that are important to get your plan achieved. In other words, be willing to say no to that which is not helping you achieve your plan so you can say yes to that which is truly important. It's a fundamental thing that you do. And I'm going to take you through a step-by-step process a little later on that will show you how to do this as a process. I'm just teaching you the concept right now of avoid distractions. For example, just give you a quick one. That would be your cell phone. I am so amazed in the world today of how many people I see that are constantly plugged in talking on their cell phone. Now, sometimes they're having vital conversations that lead to their goals. But in my research and study with people, when I survey the conversations they're having, I'm finding that the majority of their conversations they're having are not taking them to their most important goals that they have in their life or in their work environment. I have an example of this. A neighbor of mine is writing a book. He has a great idea for a book, and he works out of his home. He thinks that it's a good work environment for him. And one day he came and visited me, and he says, "Royce, last week I didn't even get a chapter written." I said, "What's the challenge?" He says, "I have so many distractions in my home. I have my wife, I have my children, I have the home telephone ringing, I have my cell phone, I have business people that are distracting me." I says, "Well, I have an idea for you." And he says, "What is that?" I says, "Why don't you go down to the library and write your book? Go to the public library where you're away from everybody, find yourself a private room there, sit down and type. Do not take your cell phone into the library with you." He went and did that very thing and started to make great progress on his book because he was able to get rid of his distractions. Because a cell phone is a distraction. Be very careful of what you think is important in your life, because sometimes a ringing cell phone is not really that important. You can check and see who's calling. If it's not someone that's vital to your goals, make a mental note of it, turn it off, and call them back later when you have some free time and when you're not working on that which is truly vital for yourself. So, take a look at your current work habits in your environment. What could you do to help you stay focused on that which is truly important? How could you make yourself get into this 90% category of really focusing on the vital tasks that you have to do? In other words, what I'm suggesting you do is take control of your life and focus on those things that are truly important to you by evaluating the distractions. Because not everything is important. Many things are not important at all. So in question number 2, you'll find in your workbook, what I want you to do is to look at the steps that you use now each day, the tools that you use to help you stay focused, and ask yourself, how can I improve this process so that I can prevent the distractions, so that I can stay focused on that which is truly important in accomplishing those goals that I've selected to be vital in my life. Take just a minute to write that down, and I'll prepare here for the next segment as you do that. Turn on the DVD when you're ready to go again. In this next segment, I want to talk to you about a concept that is called taming the email tiger. I think the title of this is self-explanatory. It's a simple, easy-to-read book that I authored with James Skinner and Mark Victor Hansen. And I'm going to summarize the content of this because I think it's very useful. As we learn how to tame our email tiger, it will show you also how to tame the distractions in your life so you can stay focused on that which is truly important. So this exercise is not aimed only at email, but it's also focused on how to keep you focused on that which is truly important in your life. Let me tell you a little bit of how I came up with this particular content and this particular short book that was written. I was out talking to many corporations, and I would ask them a question. I'd say, what thing distracts you, gets in the way of you accomplishing your goals every day? And they would say something like this: if I could just get rid of all of that email, I could do that which is important in my life. I says, well, why don't you get rid of the email? They said, I never know when there's something might be important in there, so I feel like I need to read every single email that comes across my desk. I said to them, well, this is not true. Let's manage this email and see if we can save you some time. So I'd ask classroom after classroom, I would ask them, how many hours a day are you spending on email? Now, these are in corporations. You, being a small business person or employed in a smaller organization, may not have the same numbers, but they said inside of that organization, these large organizations, they were spending 2.5 hours a day doing nothing but sending and receiving email. And some executives were spending 100% of their time doing this, upwards of 10, 12 hours a day, sending and receiving emails. What a huge waste of time. And I said to them, I said, of the 2.5 hours that you're putting into sending and receiving emails, how much of it do you consider to be wasted? I was astounded by the answer that came back, but not too surprised. 40%, they felt, 40% of their time was being wasted. That's nearly an hour a day that they're wasting. That's 8 hours a week. That's a full work day in a week. And you're paying for them wasting their time. Those of you who employ and manage other people, you're paying them for this. So we want to drive this inefficiency out of the organization. So we've devised this process to help you drive out the wasted time that people are spending on emails. So this is what you do, and this is very interesting where we start. Step number 1 in taming your email tiger is to sit down each day at the beginning of your workday and write down what are the vital results that you want to achieve that day. Now, you know what most people do? They don't do step 1 first. Usually, in fact, many times they don't even get to step 1. Because I bet you I know what you do and many other employees do and many other managers do when they get up and get to their work desk or wherever they're working that day. The first thing they do is turn on their computer and what? Their email. And the first thing they look at is their email. And pretty soon they're in there send and receive, send and receive, send and receive. And they're just mindlessly sending out emails, and they're not thinking about, does it truly connect to what I want to accomplish this day? Don't turn on your email first. Focus on what's truly important for you that day. Make a list of it. Make a list of the vital results that you want to achieve. That's step number one, and it's by far the most important thing you do. Even if you're not you're traveling and you're not using email at that time, you should begin each day with saying, what's the vital things I need to achieve this day? This habit has given me many great results over the years. It's a habit that I'm into, and I focus on that which is truly important to me that day. It's the very first thing I do. In fact, it's so important to me, I like to do this before I go to bed at night so my mind can work during the night and giving me answers what to do overnight, so when I wake up in the morning, I'm truly focused. But I think rather than asking you to take that giant step now of doing it the night before, make it the first thing you do when you sit down at your desk at your office. Focus on that which is truly important to you, that which is vital. Number two, you want to consider who are the vital people in your life. Who do you need to communicate with that day? Who are the team members you need to work with? Who are the key people that you're trying to serve out there? And think about that. And what you do when you open up your emails, the first thing you look for is those vital people. You, in fact, may want to sort it by the people. Take a quick glance through all of your emails, select the vital people, and read only those emails first. Do not read them all. Do not start from top to bottom and go through them. Many times you don't get to the vital person because they might be the last one on the list. So select only the vital people's emails and read those first. Three, what you want to do is you want to look for other emails after you get through the vital people, other email that relates to your vital results, and read those next. So do the vital people first, then do the vital emails next, and you study those, okay? Step number four. Step number four is you want to do this. You want to delete all of the other email. This scares many of my customers when I'm coaching them this. They say, I can't delete email if I haven't read it. Yes, you can. If it's not vital, don't read it. If you're not willing to delete it, at least remove it into a separate file that when you get time, you can come back and read it later. Get it out of your face so you're not tempted to read every single email that's there. And obviously, you would do the same thing with junk email. You have no problem in getting rid of that, I hope, or spam or anything that comes to your email box. But get rid of that which is not important to you. Then, only 2 to 3 times a day, review your inbox. Do not leave your email constantly on, so that every time an email comes in, you're working at your desk, it comes up and says, new email. Don't do that because it distracts you from your focus on that which is truly important, that which is vital to you. So only 2 or 3 times a day. So maybe do it in the morning, maybe do it mid-morning or late morning, then do it another time in the afternoon, maybe at the very end of the day, maybe possibly a 4th time. Something like that, a regular habit of just 3 or 4 times a day, get into that email. Now, number 6, at the end of the day, clear your email box. Clear that inbox so there's nothing in the inbox. Everything should be gone so the next morning you start fresh. Do not use your inbox as a to-do list. So many people use their inbox as a to-do list. That's the wrong place for a to-do list. This is the vital list that you want up here. Don't make reviewing your emails every time you have a few minutes and you need to work on something. Don't just go to your email box and sort through something that you need to do. Make sure that at the end of the day you clear the inbox. If it becomes vital to do, put it on the list the next day and either trash it or set it in a box somewhere that if you get time you can go back and review it. For example, you may be looking for some information or some research that you're going to be working on a project, like say 2 or 3 weeks from now. That's something that's not vital for you to do right now, but in the future it'll be useful. Put that and save that in a box where you can go to that and pick up that research later on when it becomes a little more vital to you. Unless, of course, you need to do the preparation now, then you read it now. But if you're preparing and working on that later, get it out of your inbox so that is not a to-do list for you. Now, by the way, if you're into text messaging and use text messaging a lot, that is one of the greatest distractions we have in the universe today. It's so bad in my city where I'm from, in the state where I live, that they're banning it from people, so they are doing text messages while they're driving. It's insane. You need to treat text messages this very same way. Only check them 2 or 3 times a day. Do not get into the habit of letting someone else text message or urgency control your life, distracting you and taking you away from something that is truly important to you. So let's apply this. Why don't you open up right now to question number 3 in the exercise workbook. Write down the process that you're going to use to manage your email. This is the suggestion that I give to you. You do not need to use this exact process, but develop a process that works for you. What feels comfortable? It may be too big of a step for you to delete all other email. It may be 2 or 3 times a day is not frequent enough. Maybe you are addicted to your email, and so you have to do it 100 times a day now. Maybe if you cut it to 50, that would be good, then to 25, then to 10, then to 5, then eventually 2 or 3. So do that which is important to you, and that will work for you. So take a minute, answer question number 3, make your list, and I'll prepare for the next segment. The next concept I want to teach you is almost reverse thinking from positive thinking. What I want you to do is I want you to think as you're executing. I want you to think, fail, safe. This means, how can I implement my plan so I do not fail at it? So many people just believe that everything's going to go as they wish it to go, only to get engaged in rolling out their plans, and they find there's so many holes in their plans. And they start to fail, they start to falter, and they get so disappointed and get down. What you need to do is you get your implementation plan and your wealth creation created, which we're doing in this segment. You need to look at it and ask yourself a simple question: what could go wrong? What could be a possible problem? And ask that hard question. Ask yourself and answer it. Be realistic with yourself and say what possibly could go wrong. If you've got a goal, for example, that you're going to, in your database on your website that you're launching, you're going to collect 100,000 names in the first 6 weeks, you might say to yourself, what could go wrong? What would allow me not to do that? And when you do that, it helps you to build preventive measures to prevent the failure from happening. Do not see this as negative thinking. This is not negative thinking. This is a positive thinking, looking for the negatives out there so that you can remove the negatives. Now, once you find the negative things that could possibly happen, then what you do is remove those. Let me give you an example of this that was done by a gentleman by the name of Kurt Lewin. And he did it in what he calls a force field analysis. Kurt Lewin discovered that as people build goals and they start out to achieve things, they build all of these positive plans. They get the resources, they get the people, they get the money, the energy, starting to push where they are now to where they want to be in the future up here. And this is they're trying to get up here, and this is their goal, if you would. This is the goal. This is where they are now. And he found what happens is when people go in and they just implement a program and they start pushing real hard, something almost automatic starts to happen. You start running into resisting forces, which are like coiled springs that push down on you. And even though you make some progress, you go up, the springs push you down again. And he said what we need to do is we need to remove the restraining forces. These are the restraining forces. If you go in and remove the restraining forces, then push, you don't have pushback. Let me give you a very practical example of this in a major corporation I was working in. They wanted to make a major change in their product line. They had been listening to their customers, and it took a radical change in the way the products were produced and manufactured. And so this research team worked out the new product line, what it should look like on paper. They hadn't invested any money into creating it other than the paper creation. And they went to management to present the new product change. And the management team said no. They thought they were so well researched there'd be no way that this restraining force of the management team would say no. What they had to do is they had to go back and bring the managers into the research, let them see the questionnaires, get them involved from the very beginning of the project, and they started to remove the restraining forces. In this case, believe it or not, was the top management team of the company. And as soon as they had that negative thinking removed from the management team, by taking them through the step-by-step research, letting them listen to some of the customers, see some of the interviews and do that type of thing, they removed this. They were able then to move ahead with their project and revitalize the tools that they had and that new product that they wanted to put out. And this was so important to them, so vital to them to remove these restraining forces. So go to your exercise workbook for just a moment. I want you to look and focus on what are the restraining forces. What are the things that could fail in your project? What is it that you need to prepare now, even before implementation, to make sure that you can work through before you launch so that you can have a successful launch of your product? Take just a minute to do that, and I'll come back and introduce you to the next segment. I think we've all learned today that it's important when we launch, when we get a product to the market, to do it to the highest possible quality standard that we can find. Because high quality equals high value, and high value and high quality equals high income for you in the marketplace. And when you have high income plus you have satisfied customers, what you then are going to get is you're going to have more income. Now, let me review that. High quality equals high value equals high income to you. This equals satisfied customers, and that will then give you higher income. It's a simple equation that I think we need to look at, because you must produce products at the highest quality standard possible. You need to measure the quality. You need to make sure people will pay more for quality than they will for low quality. In fact, if it's low quality, many times they simply will not buy it. You need to make sure that it is high quality. So measure the quality of your product or service that you're getting into the marketplace. That's why one of the keys that we have in the 8 keys is measure, because measurement is such a vital tool for you to get feedback on the qualities of service. Then what you want to do is use the concept of Kaizen. What you want to use is consistent, gradual improvement of the quality. And if you can make quantum leaps in the quality improvement, do that. But consistently be improving the quality of your product. So as you're executing, as you're reaching out for wealth, if you want to become truly wealthy, produce a high value product that's valuable to people, and then add high quality to that, and that's going to give you higher income in the marketplace. And to do all of this, there's only one way to measure your quality, and that's in the hands of the people who use it. You want to make sure you get consistent feedback from the customers, because the customers are going to tell you what's really valuable, if it's really high quality or not. Another way of measuring it is go out to your competitors. So many people blindly launch a product without paying that much attention to their clients, to to their competitors. They listen only to their clients, only to find that their competitors out there have a better product or service. And even if you don't have competitors in what you're doing, benchmark against high quality companies that have similar things to what you're doing that you can measure against, so that you benchmark against those people who are producing the very highest quality in the country. For example, if you want to benchmark against a great automobile, you probably want to do it against a Lexus, let's say, for example. If you want to go out and compete against the very best racehorses, what you do is find the best racehorses that are winning and benchmark against how they're training that way. You take any product or service and you find the best way for you to compete with that by benchmarking against it. Do not be afraid to copy the quality that other people have. Invest in doing that. You do not have to reinvent the wheel. So find what they're doing, copy it, and help you improve the quality that you're doing right now. Develop standards for what you're going to do. Develop quality standards. And then consistently work towards implementing those quality standards. So, what quality standards are you going to use? What are you going to do to benchmark your product or service to make sure that it's the finest in the workplace? Answer question number 5 in your exercise workbook. Take a few minutes to do that. Think about how you're going to incorporate quality into your implementation. It's time now to take your product and service into the market. You have high quality. You're able to not be distracted. You're going to focus on your cash flow. You're going to do those things that are going to make it successful. Make sure that that initial launch is successful. Make sure that the first few days or first few weeks that your product or service is in the marketplace, it's successful. So many people, when they're launching a book or a service or their new product or a new automobile or things like this, they just get it out into the marketplace and they have moderate success. Usually success breeds success. Make sure the beginning is successful, and usually will build the momentum for you to be even more successful. And some of the momentum you need to make sure it's working well is inside your organization. Your team gets very excited when it's successful, when it hits number 1, or when it has articles written about it. And when you do those things that make people put focus and attention on it, because that press, that status helps build the momentum with your people inside your organization, so they get excited. They spend a little extra time to get the orders out the door. They do those things that will make it successful. Keep your team members focused during this time. It's important that everyone knows during lunchtime what their role is to make sure it's very successful. Make sure the sales teams know. Make sure operations know. Look wherever you can to plug up a gap where you might have any form of customer dissatisfaction, and make sure that it's launched properly. And for yourself as a leader, as the owner, as the person that's doing this, make sure that you're personally energetic about it, that you're sold on it, that you're internally selling it to people and externally selling it. I recently heard a person talking about entrepreneurism and how to make sure that your new entrepreneurial product works in the marketplace. And they said, you eat, sleep, drink your product. You are your product. Wherever you are, you make sure you're representing the product. Make sure that you do your very best at wherever you can. Make sure that people are exposed and they see your personal excitement about the product or service. And you certainly want to be personally engaged. Now, in your launch process, make sure that you have what I call high fidelity feedback, very clear feedback coming back to you on how well people are accepting the new product or service. Because as you get that feedback and as it comes back to you, you're going to find some ways that you can immediately change your product to make it even better. So after you've launched it, probably within a few weeks, sometimes even a few days, depending on the product or service, you can make a revision to make it even better and gain even more momentum by being quick to respond to the marketplace. And of course, if you want to keep the momentum going really well inside your team, keep them focused and so forth, constantly celebrate. Celebrate after X number of units have been sold. Celebrate as you reach different benchmarks. Continue to measure your progress and goals until you really feel like you've accomplished the goals and objectives that you wanted. Make a successful launch. Do it and make it successful. It's so important that that launch be vitally, very, very successful for you. Now I'd like to talk to you about a concept that I think is so important, because as you implement your launch and you've got your product and service working, you need to start investing not only in your product but in your team. Because in execution, the investment into your team to make them even better is so vital. So let's talk about some of the things that you do to develop your team. The first thing I'd like you to do is to make sure that you facilitate the team members getting to know each other. Make sure that they understand and know the other person, and they develop good quality relationships. You can do this through parties, through meetings, through interactive exercises. Do things that will help them do that. And as you're doing it, create positive team traditions. This can be celebrations, it can be parties, it can be fun. I saw a software team that was putting together a banking software package, one of the very first banking software packages built in the world. They were under intense pressure by this major bank to get it out. And I walked into the software team, and usually they're working on their computers like crazy, and I saw Nerf balls and Nerf jets being thrown back and forth at each other inside of the room. Because every time they would get so much pressure, and to break the pressure, they would stand up and they'd throw Nerf balls at each other for a few minutes to relieve that pressure, and then they go back to work. That became one of the positive traditions in the development of their software. It sounds crazy, but it's one of those things that works. There's also traditions of handing out certain types of bonuses. There's traditions of giving people recognition for certain achievements as they build the product into the marketplace and so forth. Do those types of things. Now, you as a leader need to be an active member of the team. Don't be outside of the team. Be a part of the team. Let them see you working. Let them understand what you're doing. Share with them some of your concerns and some of your issues. But stay very close to that team. Make sure that each team member understands their role. Make sure they understand what it is, that the result that they need to achieve, that's very clear. And as you develop them, you'll make sure that they continue to focus on that. Also, make sure that communications are very easy and very clear, because as your organization grows, your communications must grow as rapidly as your organization does. Because when there's change in the organization, the rate of change outside of the organization grows, and you need to be able to communicate those changes so that the people personally can change. So help your team members build their skills. Send them to school, send them to workshops, send them to those things. Have them report back on their learning. Let them share what they've learned with other people. And so that everyone is developed from that happening. And then, of course, what you want to do is you want to encourage your people to have a balanced lifestyle. You as an owner own the business. You're going to achieve greater rewards than the average employee. So you need to enable those employees to keep their energy high, allow them to have a positive lifestyle, allow them to build the lifestyle that they want while continuing to help you build what you want in the future. One of the things you want to do on your team and do with yourself is keep your energy high. So let's talk about high energy for just a minute. Energy comes in four different types, four types of energy. There's spiritual energy, there's physical energy, there's mental energy, and there's social energy. Each one of these helps us keep our energy high. Let's go through each one of them. Spiritual energy is when people are working for a purpose and they're accomplishing a purpose. When they know they're going to help the needy, the poor, when they know they're going to help a client to be better off, when they know that they're going to save a life through the medical help, whatever your product or service, let people see the connection of your product and service helping other people improve the quality of their lives. Answer the question why they are doing the work. Why am I working so hard? What is the purpose in what I'm doing? When people understand a strong purpose, when they have a reason to be doing what they're doing, this enables them at a spiritual level to really focus and do that which is important. There was a survey done by one major corporation and an exit poll of people that were leaving the organization, and they would ask them the question, why did you leave the organization? One of the responses which really surprised them, it was not money, it was not the work environment, it was simply, I did not feel that I was contributing, I did not feel that I made a difference inside of this company. They did not see that connection. It was one of the #1 reasons that people were leaving the organization. By the way, it was like 4th or 5th on the list was money. Physical is when you take care of the body, the physical body. This is where you have exercise. This is where you have rest. This is where you have good food. This is where you ask people to take breaks. You give people off to some vacations that allow them to really physically take care of themselves. Physical energy is very important. The 8 keys I wrote in 28 days. And what I did in order to write it in those 28 days is I gave myself regular physical breaks so that I could get a little food, I could walk around the block, I'd do those things that would physically energize myself. I'd always keep myself connected to the purpose, but I really focused heavily on the body during that period of time. Mental energy. Now, mental energy is knowledge. When people know how to do things, they're excited. When they don't know how to do it, they may be excited to learn how to do it, but you have to give them the opportunity to learn how to do it. But really focus on knowledge. Let people expand their skill base. Let them build that energy so that they know how to accomplish a task. And social is making sure that they get the love, the care, the recognition, so they don't feel alone. They feel like they're making this contribution for a greater purpose up here. So look at each one of these and ask, how can you build the energy of the people in the organization? What can I do to energize them? Because it's not only having them focus on that which is truly important, but they need to have the energy to accomplish that which is really important in your organization. So go to question number 6 in your workbook. Take just a minute and answer the question, how will you build energy on your team? You might even ask yourself, how am I going to build my personal energy? As you build your team, and as you're working with your team and you're executing your goals, you will from time to find people having what I call negative behavior. They'll be doing those things that are distracting from accomplishing the goal versus contributing to it. And so it's important that you don't ignore this negative behavior. Don't just fire a person because they're acting negatively. So this is, how do you correct negative behavior? So correct negative behavior. You want to give this feedback so you can improve your results, you can help people to move on and do better in the work that they're doing. This is how you provide feedback on something negative. You go up to the person and you say, number 1, give them what you observed or saw. Say, I noticed that the number of these products that we're producing that your production has dropped off 10% in the last 2 weeks. And I believe that's because maybe you're getting a little bit bored with your job, and that's what I see, or you may be experiencing some personal problems at home or in your personal life. And I really want to see if I can understand what's happening. So you do fact, give your assumption about the fact, and then seek out their side of the story, their view. And then, after you hear their view, encourage them to correct the behavior. In other words, get them into positive behavior and be very specific as to what that is. So if I see a person's productivity is dropping off, I tell them I see your productivity is dropping off. I believe it's because you're distracted with something in your personal life. I ask them about it and they say, well, we just have a new baby in our home. The baby's crying all night and frankly, I'm tired. So what you do is you encourage a correction, and the correction would be, could they sleep in another room? Can they do things that will help that baby to sleep through the night? And you become a part of the solution with them, encourage the behavior, because when they do get the sleep, then it's assuming that they will come back and get their productivity up again. So become a part of the solution. As you're going through feedback, sometimes it's not just as easy as what I had here. You're talking about a difficult issue. Maybe someone has stolen from you. I saw you take a computer home the other night. I didn't see it returned. I'm assuming that you have taken this and that this is theft from our organization. I don't want to accuse you right now, but could you share your side of the story? And all of a sudden they start becoming very angry. If they become very angry, then you intervene and try to make it safe and say, it's not my intention to make you angry or defensive. I just need to know the truth here. So do the best that you can to encourage the positive behavior. Watch for the emotions, get as much emotion out as you can, and make sure that you open up the communications in your organization. I was working in Southeast Asia, consulting with a major corporation, and there was a country manager and then there was an area manager. The country manager was producing 80% of the region in his one country. All of the other countries were producing the other 20%. That country manager thought they were going to be promoted into that position of taking care of the area manager, but they were not. So when this new out of the company manager was hired and brought in, there was very bad feelings between the two of them. And it started to impact the productivity. They ended up in one of my workshops on how to go through this type of feedback scenario with each other, and I had them practice it. Within 2 weeks, they had dramatically improved their relationships. They had corrected their behavior with each other, and they had changed the quality of their team just simply because they were taking these types of steps and speaking with each other. This type of thing really works. So go to question number 7 in the exercise workbook, and what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to list what are the 4 steps in correcting negative behavior. And you may even want to write at the bottom how are you going to commit yourself to make sure you're going to get everything done properly. Okay, in this next segment, what I want to talk about is empower your team. As you're implementing, you need to have a highly empowered team. To me, empowerment is when you don't have to closely supervise people, that they fundamentally are supervising themselves. So a highly empowered team does that. Not that they're without supervision, but they're quite autonomous and it doesn't require your daily engagement. So to empower a team, you need to answer these type of questions and make these type of points. Number 1, you need to make sure that they understand who the customer is and what type of needs those customers had and how we're trying to satisfy them with your product or service. The more your employee understands the needs of the customer, can see how they're connected to that with their goal, their role and their goals that they have, this really helps them. In other words, they need to know who they are serving. Who is the who? Now, sometimes they don't work directly with the customers, but let them see how their work that they're doing supports someone who is connected to that customer. 2, what you need to do next is answer the why. So make sure that inside your organization you have a mission and people can see that mission very clearly. Your mission may be to increase the satisfaction and personal development of your customers. Let them understand that mission statement is important, so they answer the why question. 3, to empower a team, what you need to do is make sure they clearly see the vision of the company and what the company is trying to achieve. What is that end goal? Are you trying to achieve 500,000 customers in your database? Are you trying to reach $500 million in sales? What is it that you're trying to achieve? What are those goals and objectives that you're working towards? And clearly in the mission statement, they can see the what they're trying to achieve. 4, they need to understand the plan for achieving the vision and the mission, so they need to know the how. This is really important to them. Now, there needs to be enough room in that plan that they can also use some of their initiative in understanding that plan. They need to also participate in the development of the plan. In fact, in reality, they need to help in the development of the mission statement, the vision statement, and the plan, so that they become a part of it and they gain greater ownership of it. This becomes very important to them. Then you need to organize the work processes that they work in, so the work processes enable them to accomplish in a motivated way, so these people are truly motivated. So many work processes are not well defined and people don't know how to interact with other people, so that they understand that they must follow the work process, and that work process they can improve. I know a major hotel chain in this world that every day they take their teams and sit down for 15 minutes. They focus on what's really important. They focus on how to improve. They focus on the quality. They measure their results, and they're constantly motivating their people, and they're always improving their work processes. They have everything down to certain steps. They know that there's 27 steps in customer service that they provide, and they know that there's certain steps that they may take in order to achieve that which is really important. And the next to last thing you want to do is you want to measure, so people can measure their progress. Make sure when they're doing well that it's recognized. When it's not doing well, then you correct the behavior, which we've already talked about. And last of all, make sure that your team is having fun. This is one of the best ways to empower a team. Now that's a very short and fast way of getting us to the empowerment of the team. You can do a whole day's workshop on that, but those are the essential elements. And for you entrepreneurs out there, hopefully it'll help you become more empowering to your team. So the last question that I have for you in the implementation plan is this. Consider everything you've learned in this section on developing a wealth development plan. Look at it all. What are some of the ideas and thoughts you're going to use to include in your wealth development plan to achieve those wealth goals that you set for yourself in key number 3? So take a few minutes to do that. I'm going to leave you to that, which will be the end. Bring that plan with you to the next session as you listen to the next DVD, because what we want to do is add to this plan your character development plan, which we'll do in the next segment. Thank you very much.